if you're trying to tell conservation stories and no one watches them, then the point is missed. So I try and bring these conservation stories to the masses. I just try and tell stories from the local indigenous point of view. Then it strikes a chord with the audience.
My guest today was so passionate about telling the story of the diminishing numbers of the red panda that she trekked 12,000 feet in Nepal. The short documentary film, The Firefox Guardian, soon caught the attention of the world and went on to win numerous awards and nominations across several countries, including a student BAFTA nomination. She also donned many hats for a conservation series on the Brink that aired on Animal Planet and Discovery Channel. Hi, I'm your host, Mahati Rangarajan, and this is Maharani Talks. Let's listen to Gunjan Menon as she talks about the impact storytelling can have on wildlife conservation. So how you been?
Been good with surviving. It's tough for someone like me to stay indoors for so long, but we're hanging.
Okay. So I saw the Firefox Guardian. I really enjoyed it. It was such a, heartwarming story.
Thank you so much.
Could you take me through the journey of what led you there? What got you interested in, wildlife and filmmaking?
Sure. So I made that film as a part of my master's degree thesis program. And it was supposed to be a degree film, but I wanted to do so much more than just make a film to just get a degree, right? And I realized that while I was researching for the film, I saw that red panda numbers were rapidly decreasing, and I'd been fascinated with red pandas for a really long time. So then I realized that, okay, this is my chance. Maybe I can make this film. But it's incredibly hard to find red pandas in the wild, right? People who've been living there for ages haven't seen one in the wild, let alone try to film them. So it was really hard, and everyone advised me against it. But I thought, okay, this is my chance, and this is the time to take risks. So why not? Then I started doing some more research about the film, and I knew that when I told people around me that this is the film I wanted to make, so some of my friends asked, "Oh, I didn't know pandas came in red." Yeah, so I realized that people don't even know what red pandas are. So how was I going to convince them to protect them or convince them to raise their voice for them? So then I had to take a different approach. I started doing some more research to find the angle to tell the story.
Okay.
And I found this small blog article that was titled Role of Women in Red Panda Conservation. And there was this photograph of 12 forest guardians standing there, and this one woman right in the center, just shyly standing there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the story I want to tell. I want to tell a story about red pandas, but through her eyes. So that's how we started thinking about the story.
So was it difficult? Did you need permissions and other things to start filming that?
So this story was filmed outside a protected area in Nepal, which is the case for a lot of red panda habitats. While they're protected in national parks or wildlife sanctuaries, their habitat range lies in a lot of areas which are not protected. So for this, I didn't really need permissions to shoot, but I wanted Red Panda Network on board because I wanted to film with someone who worked for them. So Menuka was their first forest guardian.
Okay.
So I wrote to them and said that this is the story I want to pursue, and I'm a student and I really would love to shift the limelight on lesser known species. And they were more than happy to be on board, and they supported me so much. And our relationship still continues because whenever we screen the film, whatever amount we manage to raise, we send it back to Red Panda Network for pandas in the wild. So that relationship worked really well.
That's amazing. But, I want to go back to when you were growing up. Your introduction to wildlife and nature was a book that your grandfather had gifted. Was that your earliest memory?
Yeah, I think that is my earliest memory. I tried a couple of years back to think what really started this interest. because I grew up in Delhi, not around people who were so passionate about wildlife. I mean, they liked their dogs and cats, but I didn't have these stories of growing up in forests. I just grew up in a flat in Delhi. So then I thought that, okay, no, this was this book that I was obsessed with. My mother told me that while like everyone else was reading fairy tales, she would have to read this book about Amazon rainforest to me and show me birds of paradise. And I was really fascinated with that book. And as I grew up, we started rescuing small urban wildlife around my house. So I had a bat once that we tried to rescue, and then we released it in the wild, and
Okay.
sparrows and squirrels, all sorts of urban wildlife that I could get hold of around me, as in whoever needed help, obviously.
That's so nice.
But yeah, that's for the early connections I had to wildlife.
Okay. So when you decided to become a filmmaker and you went to the University of West of England to pursue it, what were the challenges that you faced?
So I decided very early on that I wanted to pursue wildlife filmmaking and fuse my two passions of filmmaking and wildlife together. And even when I did my bachelor's, I told them that this is what I want to do. I'm just learning filmmaking. I'll do the wildlife part on my own, but you teach me filmmaking, because there was no specialized course in India that time for wildlife filmmaking. So I was very clear very early on that I wanted to do this. So even when I was pursuing my master's, I applied to three schools all around the world that offer this program. Well, there's just like three or four, and I got into all three. So I just chose. I think it's just a passion that shines through, and when someone sees that you really want to do what you want to do,
Yeah.
and you're going to do it anyway, with or without them, then they're just like, okay, come to us. But no, University of West of England, that course is really fantastic, and it really helped me expand my horizons. Till then, I was just thinking about um, India, and I had no idea about how the global market works. So that really helped me cross those physical boundaries. But at the same time, the problem that I faced initially, coming back to your question, was I didn't know, basically. It just had to be all research from my own side. There weren't as many people, as many role models to look up to back then. Now a lot of people have come up, and the fraternity is very strong now. But I think,
Okay.
how many years back, 10 years back, it wasn't the case, and you just had to imagine what your career would be like. There weren't many women doing it, or I mean, but
Yeah.
that never bothered me as such. But it was just hard to see this as a full-time career.
Okay. And Bristol is actually considered like a hotspot for wildlife filmmaking, right?
Right, more than 40% of wildlife films are made there, actually, in the world.
That's wonderful. So I can imagine how, when you go there, you would have had so much more input about how great it is, the industry. You must have met so many filmmakers there as well.
Oh yeah, I saw my hero David Attenborough there.
Oh, did you get to interact with him?
Very little. I was in tears, and I was just awed to be in the same room as someone I grew up admiring.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. But main thing is that just to be in a room full of people who think like you, who have the same goals, that was so empowering in itself. Because as I mentioned earlier, I didn't grow up around people who had similar passions. So just being there with 20 other people who wanted to be conservation filmmakers, who wanted to make a difference with their films, that was a beautiful feeling. So that really helped me in a way, and that showed me suddenly, like, till then I didn't know enough people who wanted to do this. I wasn't sure if this was even a full-time career, and suddenly I was in a room full of people, meeting all these industry professionals
Yeah.
who had made a career out of this, and who'd been uh, who were as passionate as I was about saving wildlife, not saving wildlife, but telling truth with their stories. So that was very passionate. That was amazing.
That's true, yeah. You know, an important aspect of wildlife filmmaking or conservation filmmaker, as I know that you would like to, see yourself as, is the aspect of storytelling. How do you approach, storytelling? Like, for instance, with the Firefox Guardian, how did you, go about it? Could you take us through that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So for me, story right now is the center of everything that I tell, because just a string of facts is not going to captivate the audience I'm trying to target. And we've grown up seeing a certain kind of documentaries in India, especially, that people can't relate to, and it sort of alienates them. And even the documentaries I grew up watching coming from abroad, they had this certain quality of just being pretty pictures, fuzzy little animals, without telling us the real truth. So, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up around people who are not as passionate about wildlife. So, I try and think of them as my target audience whenever I make a story. So, something that would appeal to them. Because if you're trying to tell conservation stories and no one watches them, then uh, the point is missed. So
Yeah.
I try and bring these conservation stories to the masses. So story is extremely important for me. Story at the center of everything. I don't try to uh, throw too many facts at people. I don't try to talk at them. I just try and tell stories from the local indigenous point of view, like their stories in their own voice, and try and make them as authentic as possible, so that then it strikes a chord with the audience, right?
Yeah.
If they care about the people, or if they care about the species, then they're able to uh, take the action that I want people to uh, the feeling that I want people to take away from the film. That works better.
That's true. So before you start filming, do you go there a few days and go live with the community, because community is so important aspect of wildlife conservation. So how do you go stay live with them, get to know them? What is it usually that you do?
That's a great question, because often with communities, they've never been on camera before. And some people that I've worked with, they haven't even watched films, the kind of films that we do. So they obviously don't understand what we're trying to do. All they've done is spoken to maybe sponsors about the work an NGO is doing there. So the answers that we tend to get from them are very rehearsed, that, okay, we're happy, we're doing this. And those aren't the kind of stories that you want to stick to, because it's very surface level. So
Yeah.
I tend to go, I mean, I don't have the luxury to go and spend a lot of time with them. But for instance, in the Firefox Guardian, we were there for 2 weeks. And when I first started interviewing Menuka, and mind you, we already had this language barrier. I didn't speak in Nepali, she didn't speak in Hindi or English. So we already had that barrier. And on top of that, she wasn't comfortable on camera.
Okay.
So the first day, the interviews were really superficial. And I mean, just because she didn't know what needs to be done, and she just couldn't fathom why I wanted to know what she feels like. Like, nobody had asked her about her feelings, her emotions before. So she was a little clueless on the first day. So I just decided to keep the camera away, and we went on treks together. We would just spend a few days together, and we would shoot other stuff, like we would shoot the habitat, but
Okay.
just keep checking with her, looking for pandas. And I think our mutual love for pandas brought us together and helped the bond. So by the fifth day, when I started interviewing her again, she was now able to share her stories. And I think that is really important when you're working with local communities, to give them that, to make them feel comfortable with you and to make them trust you. So I think I try and follow that now with every story that I do. And even if I don't have the luxury of time, I take it slow. I first try and form a bond with them, either on the phone or just the first couple of hours of the shoot, and then get to the main interview. I've noticed that it makes a lot of difference if there is a bond, compared to where you're just going, meeting someone and taking an interview.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so clinical, I guess, for them.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it like when you first spotted the red panda?
That's a funny story, and I never get tired of telling it. So we were staying with Menuka in her village, like her homestay, and the red panda habitat was up a mountain about 5 hour trek away. So we had to go trek every single day up and down. But then we decided, okay, 2 days maybe we can stay camp up there and then come down. We had to come down because there was no electricity up there. So to charge our camera batteries, we had to come down. So that whole trek had to be made despite me hating them so much. So we were down with Menuka in the village when we got a call from one of our trackers that they've spotted a red panda. They've spotted a red panda cub, and we were doing interviews, and we left everything, and we just got hold of all the equipments that we could find, and then started running up that trek. And that uh, what usually took us 5 hours took almost half the amount of time, because we were just so excited, and we were like running up a mountain to finally be able to see this red panda. And the first time I saw panda was so mesmerizing. I just forgot that there was this direction, or I had to shoot a panda. I just kept staring at it. It was so beautiful. And then I had to remind myself, okay, no, you're here, but there's a lot of people are counting on this. So then we started filming. But it's beautiful, and this beautiful helpless creature sitting right in front of me, it made me think that it's so unfortunate what's happening to them.
Yeah.
They're getting poached for their fur, and it's so meaningless, because this animal sitting here live in all its glory is so important to these communities here. It's so important for the ecosystem. And why do they have to die just for the selfish needs of some humans?
Yeah.
And that's when I decided that I'm going to advocate for these species for as long as I can. And even though the film was made 3 years ago, I still continue to talk to children about red pandas. I still take the film to as many places I can to just raise awareness, because these guys have it really tough. But these
Yeah.
little red pandas need all our help. And I think just that moment when we locked our gaze, that was a turning point in my life.
But were you also okay with the possibility that you might not, sight a red panda?
Professors and mentors were like, please go with the plan B. Even BBC finds it hard to film red pandas in the wild. So
Oh,
can you and you're doing this for the first time, so there's a high possibility that you won't find the panda. So we were going with a plan B, that was to just record Menuka's reactions if we don't find a red panda, because that in itself is a story as well, that
yeah.
their numbers are decreasing so much. The people who are living in the forest, despite them looking so hard for them, they can't find pandas. So that was plan B, but I'm glad we found them, and the story is what it is right now.
When did you realize the impact of the movie?
So the film started going around to a lot of film festivals around the country, and it was getting recognized. It even got shortlisted for a student BAFTA award. And till then, I didn't really believe that it was that good. I still don't, but I know. But I think the global recognition made me realize that it is something special, or maybe like a story that people are relating to. But more than that, what made me realize the impact of the film was when a 6-year-old Emmy from Oregon sent me an email. I mean, her father sent me an email of her holding a photograph of Menuka, and he'd gifted it to her for Christmas. And he said that she loves the film The Firefox Guardian, and she is in love with Menuka. And she says that she wants to grow up and become a conservationist like her. So we wanted to encourage that. And so we gifted her this photograph. And then what happened was that photograph was gifted to Menuka. So a photo of Emmy holding Menuka's photo was sent to
Okay.
Menuka in Nepal. And that sort of really motivated her as well, and showed her that she's inspiring kids continents away. So that's when I realized that this little story had touched so many hearts, and it was changing lives all around the world.
Yeah.
And that sort of made me realize that this is what I want to continue doing. I want to not make just films anymore. I want to tell films that make an impact, tell films that can change lives. And I know that my power medium is so powerful that it can literally impact lives. So I then decided that this is the path I wanted to choose with films in general.
Okay. How is the Red Panda community now? It's been 2 years since you made the movie, right?
Right.
Has it gotten any better?
So this was in Eastern Nepal that we shot, and since then, Red Panda Network has expanded this particular model because it works really well of ecotourism. They've used this model, and they've expanded to West Nepal as well, Western Nepal,
Okay.
and the number of female forest guardians has increased because that created awareness at two levels. One was with Red Panda Network because they realized the role of women in conservation, and one was within the communities itself, because earlier when they saw Menuka as a rebel, now they realized that okay, no, she was getting so much attention, so it is something really nice that she's doing. And another thing that I wanted to say was the role of these local communities in protecting model of ecotourism in general has being has been adopted to a lot more species around the country, because outside protected areas, these communities are the only way to help species. And
Yeah.
this has proven to be very useful for other species as well. I'm not saying the film inspired it, but I know that that's what's been happening since then.
That's really good news. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I read that, this Indian conservation model, this was done by India's environmental organization called Kalpavriksh. That the forest governance hasn't always been inclusive of the local communities. In fact, of a certain area that they mapped out from 1999 to 2020, about 13,450 families were displaced. And they were saying how this conservation model of the government is actually failing, in the sense that you don't displace the people to protect the wildlife. It has to go hand in hand. And I think a lot of times that's lost, that it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, Mahati, you're absolutely right about that. We tend to look at conservation from the outside, and we think of just saving the species. It's like something that we are coming in as saviors and saving them. But for these local communities, it's a way of life. They have this ownership over these species, and they consider it their duty to save these animals. So that's the biggest difference. And when we displace these communities, they're losing out on their ancestral traditional practices. And I think we need to start involving people in the conservation measures that we make.
Yeah.
A lot of conservationists are now speaking up about this, but the government still sees them as enemies. And that's not the case. If we involve, conservation is not anti people. It is so much more effective when you involve people in those in the conservation practices, in your measures, in your plans. Like, sit with them, they're the main stakeholders. If you sit with them and make your plans, then they're going to be so much stronger. For example, I was doing this story in the Northeast, and for these hulok gibbons, and people there, they came up with a plan themselves on how these certain species of trees could be planted so that gibbons have more connectivity. Because they've been observing them for years. They know which trees they which fruiting trees they feed on, which trees they rest on. So
Yeah.
they have the knowledge, and if we can utilize their traditional knowledge, then it's so much more effective. And even in case of these red pandas, um, some of these forest guardians used to be poachers, but
Oh,
then after speaking to them, they realized that they were more valuable to them alive if the ecotourism model was introduced. So these poachers were only converted in the sense they were taught how to be trackers. So we are still using the traditional knowledge of finding a red panda, but using it to find them for tourists instead of finding them to kill them.
yeah.
So another story that I was doing in Rajasthan was with Raikas, who are pastorals, and they've been living with leopards since centuries. And instead of accusing them that why are you entering the forest? If the government can introduce better plans for them or grazing grounds for them, then the conflict's going to be way lesser.
Right.
Because right now they're just living in this compromised situation, and all these films tend to show it in a very coexistence light. But when I also went into the story thinking that it's a story of coexistence, but when you go and actually talk to them, it's more about compromise. They consider leopards holy, so they don't want to harm it. So in a way, religion is keeping the leopard safe there, but at the same time, they're not the biggest fans. They know that their leopards are taking away their sheep and goats, and they would rather not. But then if you can help them, in certain, they are the people living with the forest, so instead of just pulling them out and destroying their livelihoods, I'm sure there can be better alternatives right from the beginning. So
That's
it's to
true.
keep both the sides in mind.
In fact, recently you even wrote about two leopard cubs that were, rejoined with their mother because of the forest ranger, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He was actually patient and he wanted to ensure that the cubs don't go to the zoo.
Yeah, there was a beautiful story, and this forest guard also I met on one of the shoots, and we've just been in touch since then. And he tells me everything that happens around the forest. He's like, today filmed this bird. Today I saw hyenas. So one day he just messaged me that the villagers have caught some three leopard cubs, and we're going to rescue them. I said, oh my God, that's amazing. All the best. And then the story just kept unfolding itself, and it was more of a mystery novel than like a normal WhatsApp exchange. So I decided to write about it. And it was amazing how he persevered, and he said, no, I am going to take responsibility. I will nurse these leopards till we find their mother. And that was really heartwarming.
Yeah.
I'm editing something that we filmed with him right now. It'll release in a couple of weeks, I think. But
Okay.
he's a really wonderful soul, and you meet such people at the grassroots who really will go out of their way to say protect wildlife. And we have people who are so passionate on the front line. So that's if we just work alongside them instead of just coming up with policies that are on a different tangent altogether. I think if our government's listening, then we really need to work in hand with people.
Yeah, such people are crucial for conservation. From your experience of interacting, with government officials, how has the apathy been? Do you think it's like reduced and they're more willing to cooperate?
So, from my experience, the forest department staff has been extremely cooperative with me. Like they love that people come and tell stories in their forests, and they've always supported me with logistics and everything else. But I think outside the forest department, the policymakers in general, they're not on the same tangent as us. They look at activists as enemies for some reason. And yeah, I think it's because advocating for forests goes against their agenda of development. And they have to understand that we are not against development, we're just against unsustainable development.
Yeah.
So there's this huge gap what's happening, and the environment minister also is not listening. We have so many experts in the field to give advice on how to work this out, but they're just not listening for some reason. And recently, even Fridays for Future, their website was banned because they were protesting against the EIA, and they were charged with UAPA, which is the Terrorism Act, which is crazy because they're just a bunch of kids trying to save the environment. If you're calling us terrorists, then I don't know what people want from kids these days. If the kid, it's so nice to see, it's so endearing to see the next generation standing up for our natural world,
Yeah.
but apparently that's not acceptable to the government. So I don't know. It's really sad, and I wish I had a better answer to give. But right now, they are really on a spree to destroy the natural world. But hopefully the people will realize this, and that's where our role comes in as communicators, that you raise awareness about these issues that are happening around us. And if everyone can stand up against them, then they can no longer ignore us, probably.
That's true, yeah. The October 1st week was National Wildlife Week. And there was actually, Prime Minister Modi was talking about how conservation and wildlife is as important as development of the economy. And yeah, he actually was talking about how the Project Lion and Project, Elephant was success. I think Project Tiger, and they want to put up more such projects.
I wish we would start looking at these things more holistically, as conservation more holistically. Right now, our approach is very species driven. And by our, I mean the government's approach is very species driven, while we are destroying the habitat. So, while on one hand, we are celebrating the rise in tiger numbers, on the other hand, we're destroying the habitats. So, it doesn't work that way. For a species to succeed, to thrive, you need habitats to thrive.
Yeah.
So our, our esteemed government, unfortunately, does not understand that. And there's this wonderful comic by cartoon strip by Green Humor, which shows that people standing with the tiger in the first strip, and in the second strip the environment minister is actually kicking the tiger. So it's like in front of the cameras they're all feeding peacocks and talking about conservation, but behind our backs they're destroying everything that they need to thrive. And people don't see this because of greenwashing. They think that oh no, our green cover is increasing, whereas the green cover is only like these farmlands and not real forest cover. People who really need to see this are not able to see it because the government's very good at hiding these facts and pretending that they're doing something when they're not. And quite contrary, they're doing things to harm the natural world more than, not doing anything would still be fine at this point, but they're actually harming the natural world. And my point is that switching off light bulbs or one person going sustainable is not helpful anymore. That was fine 10
Okay.
years ago, but now we need to hold our governments responsible because they're the ones in charge of policies. And if we don't have greener policies, then as a country, as the whole world, we are going to the drain.
Yeah, I agree. The change has to happen at the policy level. So it's high time.
Exactly.
What is, your experience, your personal experience, that has hit you the hardest when you were out in the forests or, whether you visited sanctuaries?
I think once I'd gone to South Africa for a conference, and there we got to witness the dehorning of a rhino. And that is
Oh,
something that completely shook me, because a rhino was being dehorned for conservation. And that showed me that conservation can't be just black and white. And it was way more complicated. And the reason was that rhinos in that reserve were being poached for their horns. And the horns are just the same material as our fingernails, just keratin.
yeah.
But in the black market, they're very, very valuable. So unfortunately, these magnificent animals were being poached for these horns. So the governments come up with this plan of cutting off their horns so that the main reason why they're getting poached is gone.
Yeah.
So unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know. Fortunately, rhinos in that reserve are alive now because of this dehorning. But unfortunately, because I had to witness that we as a species were deforming this another species just to save them from our own kind. So that really had an impact about what we have a species have come to.
That's really a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
You also worked on the Brink. Could you talk a little bit about that? How did that happen?
Yeah, On the Brink was a very special series because I was assisting this Akanksha Sood. She was the director of On the Brink, and we were working with a presenter, very young presenter,
Okay.
Malaika was, and it was being shot by Sugandhi Gadadhar. So we had started off with a very nice all-women crew, and we were out filming stories of conservation, and one episode was dedicated to one endangered species around India. And this was extremely important because this series managed to go on prime time on Animal Planet and Discovery, and in a ecosystem when conservation films were not being shown on television. So this went on at like got the 9 p.m. slot on Animal Planet, so which was very cool.
Okay.
And like I mentioned earlier, there are people working at the grassroots and they're doing some amazing work. And through this series, we were able to highlight not just the species and the habitats, but also people working in conservation. So that was really special. And because we were a small team, I was doing second camera, I was the assistant director, I was doing research for the show, I was also doing sound on a location. So it was a very interesting experience, and I mean, we had a lot of fun on set as well.
So, who can you tell me who's your inspiration been?
There are a lot of people, and it's hard to pick one, but I think David Attenborough has had a huge role to play, uh, because he was the first one who inspired me to make wildlife films, and I used to watch behind the scenes of these documentaries, Planet Earth, and they were the first ones
Yeah.
that I saw. So he's had a huge role to play, and I enjoyed watching Jeff Corbin when I was a kid, and that on Animal Planet, that was nice. In India, there's Mike Pandey,
Yeah.
and he made a film called Shores of Silence, which was instrumental in creating policy level change for the whale sharks. His little film was able to get the hunting of whale sharks banned, and the Riverbank Studios, which he started, was also the first wildlife place that I interned at, wildlife filmmaking place.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And yeah, they were among my first mentors in this industry. So it was, I think, so right from the start I knew why I was getting into this field. I knew that films, I'd seen firsthand that films do have the power to change, bring about change even at the policy level. So right from back then I knew that I wanted my films to make a difference. So I think that way he's been a huge inspiration to just show us that it is possible to do more with your films, to just go beyond a certain aspect of filmmaking.
So, what are your current projects? What are you working on?
Currently, I mean, just before the lockdown was announced, we were filming in Rajasthan in this sanctuary called Kumbhalgarh Wildlife Sanctuary, which is quite a lesser known sanctuary in India. In Rajasthan, you mostly hear of Ranthambore, but it's a beautiful sanctuary with very elusive animals. So we've filmed a couple of stories there. And so during the lockdown now, we're just editing those. So it's keeping us busy. And I mean, I say lockdown because we are still on a voluntary lockdown because others around us are not following it. So we still are.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So that's kept us busy. And apart from that, I'm looking for funding for another project that we're developing. It's about this lovely species. I won't say much, but it's a species that's extinct in the wild. So
Okay.
again, after red pandas, now I've made my challenge even harder of trying to find a species that's extinct in the wild, but we're going to try and find them in the wild and bring them back on the conservation map.
Could I ask which area at least? Or you don't want to divulge that?
Northeast India, that's fine.
Okay.
We're going to work towards putting the species back on the map. Let's see. And then I've started this initiative called Beyond Premiers, just inspired from everything we spoke about right now, which is trying to make a tangible impact with your films. And I realized that if doing it with the Firefox Guardian and another film I did, Living with the Kings, brought me so
Yeah.
much joy that, you were creating a difference with your films, creating a tangible impact. So why shouldn't I help others do it? So I started this organization, and we're going to help bridge the gap between filmmakers and local communities and NGOs, and help filmmakers create an impact with their films, and help NGOs reach out to filmmakers to sort of connect with them and use films as a medium to promote themselves. So
that's a wonderful initiative. And Living with the King, that work was with the Madras Crocodile Bank, right?
right. Yeah, we did one episode on the Brink on king cobras, and because we shot at Croc Bank, so Rom was like, we are helping you, so why don't you help us as well? So I said, yeah, that's a great idea. And using footage from On the Brink episode and like crowdsourced footage along with footage that their researchers had shot, we created this educational documentary about king cobras. And the idea was that if people in Agumbe are coexisting with king cobras, people elsewhere can as well. Because what happens in the Eastern Ghats is that people kill king cobras at sight just because of their sheer size. It's frightening, right? King cobras are the longest venomous snake.
Yeah.
And so many people in India die of snake bites. But the truth is that king cobras actually do not bite humans unprovoked. So through the film, we were trying to show that people in Agumbe are just so relaxed having king cobras around. They and the sheer gentleness of the species. These are the only snakes that make a nest. They're the only snakes that uh, do so many beautiful things. And just so the film focuses on their behavior. It shows the people's tolerance in Agumbe. And then this film was dubbed in Telugu and shown to the people in Eastern Ghats. So an organization working there called Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society helped with that. And they took it to the local communities there who were in direct conflict with king cobras. And I think 2 months ago, Rom wrote to us saying that the people there have started calling rescuers instead of attacking king cobras, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And that's the impact that probably the film had, or like continuous dialogue with those people that we are here, just call us instead of killing a king cobra. So, and I mean, I like to believe that the film had some role to play in that. And the film's now being dubbed in other Southeast Asian languages as well, in places where there are conflicts. It was a very simple thing we did, but it has such a huge impact. So drawing from those examples, I realized that it's very easy to just, take the film one step forward, two steps forward, to actually try and make a tangible difference. So
Yeah.
that's how Beyond Premieres was started.
And I saw the movie, the film. It was really nice, and personally, I have a fascination for snakes. So it was so informative. The film, like you said, it was very interesting to watch. Yeah, and Romulus Whittaker, of course, is a visionary. He's so famous, especially in Chennai. So, and his work is just exemplary. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks so much, Gunjan. It was so much fun talking to you.
It was lovely talking to you, and all the best.
Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. You can reach me on Instagram at Maharani Talks. Take care.